Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mark Fowler. I'm the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of Tannenbaum, and I'd like to welcome you to Webinar 3. Let me just skip ahead to show you something very quickly. So I am not Kimberly Kaiserman. Kim is the Education Program Associate in the Education Program and was supposed to be delivering this webinar, but she unfortunately has the flu. So you have the sloppy seconds known as Mark Fowler, and I'm just very happy to be with you. Let me just check. Um, can you all hear me? That's the first thing that I'd like to know. If you could just put in the chat box that you can hear me, that would be great for us to know. Okay, great. Thank you. I see it's coming through your questions box. Perfect. Okay. So I'm also joined on the webinar by my colleague, Liz Jocelyn. Say hello, Liz.
Hi, everyone.
So Liz is actually, as we used to say in the disco area, on the ones and twos, helping me with the logistics. They were the turntables, the ones and twos. That's what we used to call them. All right, so we're here to provide this webinar for you. We want to thank all of you for joining. Um, this is the third in a six-part webinar series on the World Olympics for All. This unit and this webinar is based on Unit 3 of the World Olympics curriculum, learning about wellness. We also want to thank Nissan and the Pine Tree Foundations for their generous support of this project. We'll be using both the poll feature and the question box throughout the webinar. So we look forward to hearing your thoughts about the information that we're going to present. And if you're new to this particular webinar platform, just take a moment to familiarize yourself with your control panel. This webinar is being recorded, and all of the registrants, whether you are participating live with us today or you've registered, will actually be getting a link to the recording uh, probably within a week or so after this session ends. And periodically, I'll be reading aloud some of your comments from the question box so that you can hear from one another, and your participation can also get captured in the recording. And thank you. Welcome from Honolulu. Christine and Brenda also on the call on the webinar today are Natalie and Patty and Sarah, Jermaine and Amanda. Thank you all for joining us. Let me just share a quick word with you about our organization. Tannenbaum is a secular, non-sectarian, not-for-profit. We're based in New York City. Um, our mission is to combat religious prejudice and to really try and create the bridges between religious differences. We work in schools, we work in healthcare settings as well, in corporate workplaces, and with our peacemakers in action in areas of armed conflict around the world. I do want to reemphasize that we are a secular and non-sectarian not-for-profit, which means that we don't promote religion, nor do we denigrate it, but we recognize that it's a force in people's lives. So we don't have an opinion about which belief system is better or not, but we are very much concerned with and want to provide resources to educators as they're trying to incorporate religion as a part of multicultural education. Okay, so moving on, we thought that we would start with a couple of quizzes. So now I'm just going to ask your patience as we bring the polls up because we're coordinating these between myself and between Liz. So just give us 1 second. So here's the first poll. I think, oh, let me launch it. Okay, so the poll question is, according to the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, My Plate guidelines, half of your plate should be made up of dairy products, proteins, fruits and vegetables, whole grains. Okay, and I can see that several people have voted. Just give a few more minutes so that we get as many responses as possible. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and we will be sharing your responses just a little bit later in the session. So, our next poll question, which of the following, oh, did it come up yet? Oh, no, it didn't come up yet because I didn't launch it. Here we go. Which of the following is not considered a healthy unsaturated oil? Is it olive oil, sunflower oil, peanut oil, or coconut oil? If you could please note your responses. Give you a few seconds to respond. Okay, thank you for all of those responses. We're going to close this poll, and then we're going to go to our third poll. How much physical activity should children ages 6 to 17 get per day? Is it 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or 60 minutes? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. Okay, so we will share the results share the results of the polls with you shortly. Um, let me just go on. So that a little quick overview about the curriculum and the program that we're working on. World Olympics is a literacy-based, academically integrated curriculum for elementary grades, which you can see on the screen. We created World Olympics because the Olympic Games are a very powerful example of an event that brings together people who have both vast differences and remarkable similarities, and bringing them together in the spirit of respect and goodwill. The curriculum really capitalizes on this exciting and unifying theme. And the intention is that we would be able to develop students' academic, physical, and socio-emotional skills. Just a reminder, because some of you may be thinking about this, we actually, through the fund, through our Nissan and through the Pine Tree Foundation, have been able to make available copies of the curriculum. And so the first 100 people who registered for this webinar series will be receiving one copy for their location. I'm happy to say that we're in the process of sending out those copies. So if you registered by January the 19th at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, you should be receiving your curriculum within the next couple of weeks if you have not already. Okay, I see a note that the slide has not changed. Are you, oh, I'm sorry, let me just see something. Does everyone see right now World Olympics and overview? Is that the slide that you see? Okay. Uh, hmm. I'm not quite sure. Okay. I'm not quite sure why that is. Let's see. Has it changed now? Okay, apologies. Just give us one moment. Okay, still hasn't changed. Let's see. Okay, it has changed. Okay, great. Thank you all so much for your patience. So all of the things that I just said apply to this slide. But in essence, the genesis of this curriculum, which is close to 20 years old, really saw the Olympic Games as this opportunity where there are these vast differences, but also these remarkable similarities. So I hope that if you already have your copy of the curriculum, that you are seeing that as well in its implementation. And if you are going to get your curriculum soon, we look forward to hearing your thoughts about that. So there are 5 units in the World Olympics curriculum. The first two units and the first two webinars we've already addressed, learning about each other and ourselves, and learning about the world. Today's session focuses on learning about wellness, and there's as well a culminating event. So we will be conducting 6 official webinars as part of the exploration of the use of the book, but we'll also be hosting at least one kind of town meeting where it'll just be kind of an open session where we'll just be able to take your questions about implementing the curriculum, questions that you have about interacting with parents or with other stakeholders, ways to engage community. So that will happen after this initial 6 session series. Okay, and then our objectives for today, as you see on the screen, we'll definitely be talking about healthy eating and dietary requirements, but looking at that through a multicultural lens, introducing different ways of eating, also making a little bit of a connection between wellness from the perspective of play and wellness from the perspective of game and development of social emotional intelligence and curiosity. And then also looking a bit at some of the similarities and differences between games and exercises that are common around the world. Just a quick snapshot of Unit 3. In another document that we'll be sharing with you, uh, there are a number of handouts that are a part of the drop-down box that you have. But we will be pushing that those will push out to you. You may have access to them now. They may push out to you at the end of the webinar. But one of those will also include throughout the webinar series and throughout the curriculum suggested amounts of hours that each activity could take so that you can think about how to incorporate that into your overall planning. These are the lessons that are incorporated in Unit 3. And 3 of these actual lessons are in your handouts for today in the toolbar. To the right, there's a section called Handouts. So now we want to start and go over some of the answers to the quiz. So the first, let's see, now Liz, do you have those? The answers to the polls? Can you open up your poll thing? Okay, so if you go to the first one, right, so let's see. I don't actually get it on my screen, but it's on Liz's screen. So 93% of you said that half of your plate should be made up of fruits and vegetables. That is correct. And I'll just show you, if you close that, Liz, for a second, I just want to show everyone um, the My Plate guidelines, which many of you may already be familiar with. If you're unfamiliar with My Plate, it was established by um, the U.S. Department of Agriculture in 2011, replacing the food pyramid. And the picture, as you can see, is separated into 4 different colored sections of the actual plate. The red and green pieces take up half of the plate. There's a larger orange section for grains, smaller purple portion for protein. The blue circle outside represents a serving of dairy. And many of you may remember the old food pyramid and wonder what's the difference. First, the sweets, fats, and oil category has been completely removed. And the meats and beans category is now combined as just protein. So that includes legumes and nuts, fish and poultry. And the major goal of My Plate is to put food consumption in proportion so that you may not have a scale. Children are certainly not thinking about that, but it's pretty easy to visually see if half of your plate is actually taken up by fruits and vegetables, while dairy and protein should be a smaller part of your diet. Now, I also want to say that we're operating from the U.S. Department of Agriculture's recommendations, and these are recommendations. So there may be individual um, applications that young people and their families are employing, but this is just, if you will, a better practice and a place to start from. Just to quickly address some of the questions I see popping up, the handouts are in the curriculum, and the handouts are also in your navigation tool under handouts. So most of them from the curriculum that we're talking about today have been uploaded, but we can only upload 5. So there are additional handouts in the curriculum. And if you missed the first 2 units of the webinar, those were recorded. If they're not on our website right now, we can send links to you. So Carlos will make note that you actually need links to those webinars. So we'll get that to you. Okay, so let's bring up the second poll. I'm going to leave up the food plate just to, because I know my plate is not probably going to look like this today. Every food stress day. But let's bring up the results of the second poll. So 7% of you said olive oil, 7% said sunflower oil, 80% said peanut oil, and 7% said coconut oil. The actual correct answer is coconut oil. I know. Liz is looking at me like I'm crazy. So apparently, eating more unsaturated fat than saturated fat and trans fat can reduce your risk of heart disease and improve good cholesterol levels, which my doctor has been telling me. So we want to reduce foods that are high in saturated and trans fat, such as butter, whole milk, and baked goods. Replace them with foods higher in unsaturated fat found in plants and fish, such as vegetable oils, avocado, and tuna fish. So the correct answer is actually coconut oil. The bad oil is coconut oil. I faded out because Liz gave me a dirty look. Okay, and then actually Liz is going to not email, I guess share with all of you through the chat box. If you don't already have access to the My Plate information, we just sent you a link for that. Okay, and then why don't we bring up the third poll question now? I think you have to close that one first. Okay, so 86% of you said 60 minutes is the amount of physical activity children 6 to 17 should get, and that is correct. Um, Most of the 60 minutes, interestingly enough, should be either moderate or vigorous intensity physical activity and should include vigorous intensity physical activity at least 3 days a week. And I know that that can sometimes be a challenge depending on where you're physically located, but it is the recommendation, and certainly as we're all trying to pay attention to challenges around health and weight for young people, um, to the degree that you can partner either within your school or educational setting, that would be, I think, recommended. So we want to go on. We can close that poll now, Liz. Thank you. Um, Let's ask this question. If you could put your responses in the question box. If you had to choose one favorite food, what would it be? Chocolate, pizza, chicken, pizza, shrimp, salmon, yogurt, fish, hummus. Okay, so we have a bit of variety. So what's really interesting is that I got another vote for chocolate. I am with the chocolate people. as well as the pizza and the shrimp. There's actually nothing you've said that I don't want to eat. Uh, but in the same way that we're talking about this on the webinar, this is a really great way to engage young people in a discussion about nutrition. So I want to show you. Okay, something just happened um, that I did not click. Some kind of redirect notice. I don't know what this is. What is this? Okay. Are you guys still with me, and can you still see lesson one, Olympic nutrition, and the question to respond in the question box? Thank you guys so much. Okay, so I'm going to now try and go to, all right, some reason I keep getting, okay, I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, so a bar graph is a really great way to just gauge with young people what are the things that they like to eat. So just like we had a couple of responses for pizza, we had a couple of responses for chocolate, you can actually kind of create a bar graph within a group of students or within a class that gets them to be able to see what are their favorite foods. But this also becomes an opportunity for them to begin to consider what are some of the healthy alternatives that they can offer, or what are some of the ways that they might be able to customize their special food. So I know for me, I love dark chocolate, like anything 70% or above. I'm in heaven. If it comes to pizza, sometimes as opposed to having like double cheese, that I might want to have a veggie slice, or to, address that fruit and vegetables from my plate. So this is a great way to engage in that conversation. Um, After the students are all done with kind of like creating the bar graph, then we can actually look at some of the categories, and they might be able to assess what are some of the things that they might consider eating or adding to their diet that they both like, but might be healthier alternatives. And then for support around this, I know that in New York we have the New York City Department of Education has a school wellness program. Perhaps where you're located, there are also either school wellness programs, or you might be able to partner with the Department of Health to maybe have someone come in and do a presentation, not just for the students, but this would also be a really great community building activity, to have someone from the Department of Health come in and talk about healthier options and exercise and that kind of thing. Okay, so we're going to ask you another question. Is there a food group or group of foods you avoid for reasons of preference, or for reasons of health, or for reasons of belief? Okay, so there are a few people who don't have any kind of food restrictions, some for seafood, spicy for health, pasta, fish and seafood of all types, sugary or high fat foods for health, raw onion for health, organ meats or non GMO, and gluten, no gluten for health. I love most foods, but I have to avoid oysters and most raw veggies for health. So that's really great. There are any number of high fructose corn syrup. Variety is the spice of life, and I see it as good health practice in eating also. That's great. So you can see that there are, if we were to all go out to dinner, there would be different things that would be of consideration for us as we're sitting down to try and order our food. But this is also another way in which we can communicate to young people that even the foods that we eat can represent the really remarkable diversity that may exist within a classroom or within a community. So I want to share some examples from the curriculum with you. Same different lunches, same cafeteria, and you have all of these in the curriculum. So first we have, let's see, who is this? So this is Tiana's lunch. She has a roast beef sandwich, fruit salad, a granola bar, and orange juice to drink. She doesn't have any dairy products because she's lactose intolerant. Then we have David has a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, carrot sticks and cookies. He doesn't have any meat because his family is vegetarian and they feel that by not eating meat, they're helping the earth and animals on the earth. Then you have Isabel who can't eat a peanut butter sandwich like David because she's allergic to peanuts. So she brought a ham and cheese sandwich and she has pretzels and a banana and apple juice. But then we have Amina, and Amina can't eat ham like Isabel because she's Muslim, and Islam teaches that you shouldn't eat pork. So she has leftovers from dinner the night before, which is chicken and rice and vegetables, as well as milk. And her mother actually bought the chicken at a halal butcher shop. But then we have Jacob, more variety. So, like Amina, Jacob doesn't eat pork because of his religion. He's Jewish and follows kosher laws. So, he has a kosher turkey sandwich, an apple, and water. Now, I know that the clip art shows that there's cheese, but there really is no cheese on his turkey sandwich because kosher laws prohibit eating dairy with meat. So I'm imagining that that yellow is actually squash, grilled squash. That's what we're saying
That's a
it is.
fancy sandwich.
That's a healthy sandwich, and it and meets the dietary requirements. And we'll change that clip art at some point. um, Alexander, who is our next student, is a vegetarian like David, but he's a vegetarian because he is a Buddhist. And Buddhism teaches respect for all the creatures on the earth. And for David, that means not eating meat. So today, his lunch is hummus and vegetables on pita with an orange and water to drink. And then we have Solada, who is diabetic. So it's important for her to eat exactly what her parents put in her lunchbox and nothing else, or the insulin she takes in the morning won't work as well. So her lunch is a turkey and cheese sandwich, carrot and celery sticks, and water. And then we have Max, has a salad, fresh bread, and fresh squeezed orange juice. His family is Rastafari. Rastafarians eat Ital food, food that is pure and fresh and doesn't include meat. So you can see from this, lunchroom table, if you will, that there are all of these opportunities, and through the stories that students tell, there are many reasons why people eat certain foods and then don't eat other foods. It's a great opportunity to promote religious and cultural literacy and to teach specific vocabulary like kosher and halal and ital. Um, Notice that this lesson presents religious diversity within the context of other forms of diversity. So eating kosher or halal or ital is presented as one of the many kinds of differences, not as something that's strange or exotic. And this actually communicates to young people that this diversity is something that's a normal part of life rather than something special and exotic. So one of the lessons that you have that I think is one of the greatest lessons in the curriculum is food challenge. And the way it's designed is that you're presented with three Olympic athletes who each have different eating requirements that are based in their religious and cultural beliefs. And the goal that the students are engaging in is to create one meal that all three of these athletes can eat that actually provides that is respectful of their eating preferences and differences, but is also nutritious. So in the actual lesson, this is a two-sided handout where you have the description of the three athletes. You also have some recommended foods across the four food categories. And then on the back is a menu planner where students can work together in groups to actually create this meal that these three athletes can eat. And then as a result, you actually have all of the groups share out. Another way or another iteration of this is for the students to, or for you actually, to provide some examples of the healthy eating alternatives, bearing in mind that some students may have eating allergies, etc. But you might have almost kind of like a buffet to have people become used to and physically see some foods that they may not be familiar with. So in the question box, why don't we play food challenge a little bit? If you could put in what your suggestions might be for either a main course or a side dish or a dessert or a drink that all three of these athletes could eat that would be respectful of each of their eating preferences. Let's see what we can come up with together. Okay, orange juice is one suggestion. Apples and oranges for dessert. Quinoa salad with roasted veggies. We probably shouldn't have done this around lunchtime without me eating beforehand. Portobello burgers for a main course. That's great. Sweet potatoes, black beans as a main course. No, I really should have eaten before we started this.
Me too. These all sound delicious.
Green salad with various veggies as a side. Apples and honey dip for dessert. Love that. They can all drink water and our fruit juice, a salsa dip. These are all really great suggestions. So as you can see, as much fun as it was for us to do this even, remotely and virtually, young people really get into trying to create a meal that everyone can eat. And it inspires creative thinking as well. Vegetarian burritos. I'm hungrier still. Let's move on to the next to the next part of the webinar. So in lesson 2, children learn different ways of eating around the world using hands, using bread, tortilla pieces, chopsticks, forks, spoons, knives, and sporks. This lesson really tries to broaden students' knowledge of different cultures. Plus, it's a lot of fun. And I'll just reiterate something that we talked about in the first webinar series, which is also really kind of like a bedrock within our pedagogy and within our curriculum. One of the ways to mitigate the ways in which young people might interact with each other around differences is to have a class contract and have them actually establish what respectful behavior looks like, sounds like, and feels like. And that's always a great place to land back to communicate when young people are not honoring each other within the exploratory process. Um, this is actually a lesson that you can do. It's included in the curriculum. And before doing this lesson, you actually want to make sure that you're contacting parents and guardians or caregivers and finding out about any dietary restrictions that the students may have. And this is an opportunity to try these different ways of eating, setting up different stations, if you will, where students can eat with bread or with a fork or with a spork or with chopsticks, etc. So if you happen to have students who are facile with using chopsticks, this is a great opportunity for peer learning and peer sharing, where students who are facile with using chopsticks can demonstrate and work with their peers around how to do that. And then as you have these 7 different ways of eating, you set up these 7 different stations. And to the degree that it is a part of someone's cultural and or religious background, you might have them function as the ambassador. This is also potentially an opportunity to engage parents and guardians and caregivers, but there also really needs to be some time spent with those people that you invite into the classroom or in the school around just the same rules of respect that students are engaging in, that your parents and caregivers and guests are also modeling those. So these are some questions that can actually be asked at the end of the experience. These might be a journal experience, or it might be kind of like a classroom blog that could be created. Did you use any of these utensils for the first time? Did everyone use the utensils in the same way? If you visited someone's house for a meal and they use different utensils that you've never tried, what would you do and why? And if someone came to your house for a meal, they didn't know how to use the utensils that your family uses, how could you help them feel comfortable? So all of these are opportunities for young people to respond to how do they create an environment that's welcoming and supportive and respectful, and what are some of their requests going into an environment like that? Okay, so in the question box, we want to transition, and yes, the questions are included in the handouts. So yes, they are, and you'll also have the recording of the webinar as a backup for that. Um, as a child, in the question box, if you could all respond, what was your favorite game to play with your friends? It's got hopscotch, tag games, jump rope, soccer. Someone says that they're still good at it. We have no way of knowing because we can't see you, but we just know that we're going to believe what you say. Foursquare, Barbies. I was a sucker for red light, green light, one, two, three. That was one of my favorite games ever. It still is when I can get adults to play it. Playing house in school. I didn't know what a condo was then. Might have been good to play condo. Ghosts in the Graveyard. I don't think I ever played that. Handball, Kick the Can. Oh, yeah, Kick the Can was a good one. Hide and Seek, volleyball. Really, really awesome. And I'd like to just ask a follow-up question. And I see jump rope. I've seen jump rope come up a couple of times, but double dutch, that was it. That was a good spring afternoon jumping some double dutch. Marbles, yes. Loadies. I don't know how much y'all know about loadies. When you take a bottle cap and then you fill it with like not Play-Doh almost, and then you have like this uh graph that's on the ground and you're like trying to like flick your cap to like one side or the other. And you have to go in order, so it's like numbered. So you have to like go across the board and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, no, that was a diversion, but we started talking about childhood games and I got distracted.
It sounds fun.
It was a lot of fun. Um, I want to ask you all another question though. So, how did you feel? I'd like everybody to put in just one or two adjectives that describe how did you feel when you were playing your favorite game? How did it make you feel? Carefree, happy, lots of happy. Many of you are responding happy, excited, connected, energized. Yeah. So, we have within the curriculum play, if you will, and games because it does contribute to well-being in the sense of how young people know themselves and how do they experience themselves. Really looking from the social and emotional perspective, how does the introduction to new and different games, how can that advance, if you will, existing ideas of belonging as well as develop the experience of belonging when it hasn't happened. I can share with you that we've been, as I said, World Olympics is about 20 years old, and there was one implementation at one particular site that I remember where there was a young man who um, had been kind of deemed difficult to deal with by the faculty, and many of the students found him difficult to deal with as well. I believe that also had, he was also designated as a special education student. And so he was, quote unquote, a problem. When they started World Olympics, and particularly what we talk about in Unit 2 is the country research. What nobody had actually ever seen before was that this young man had an amazing capacity for facts. and to remember things, so that whatever kinds of information the counselors were providing and the teachers were providing about the countries that they were studying, he somehow had the capacity to hold on to all the information, not just what he was learning about the country that he was represented, but the countries that the of the other students. And so he all of a sudden gained a lot of social capital because students wanted him on their teams so that they could get more points for having more knowledge. So you never quite know where these kinds of things will develop. Um, that carefree sense, that sense of happiness, of belonging, of connectedness. So I just share that anecdote as a way for us to think more broadly about games and play. Um, these are some examples of books that are recommended within the curriculum. It also is an opportunity to point out that play is something that children have in common all over the world. And as sad as the state of affairs is in countries like Syria, the surrounding countries that are bringing in refugees, even in that circumstance, even in the circumstance of children being displaced from their countries of origin, they still find a way to try and play. And so uh, Liz is sending through some links to these books. And there are other books that are recommended within the curriculum. At the beginning of each lesson, there are often books that are recommended to start the lesson off as a pre-read. So you'll have all of those. And then another looking at games from around the world. Um, Part of learning about games is learning about their cultural origins. So in lesson 3, there is a puzzle called a tangram. And then puzzles, interestingly enough, are some of the most common games around the world. And the tangram puzzle is a puzzle game that was originally played in China. The game was brought to America in the 1800s by merchants and became popular here for some time. So the object of the game is to make figures of common animals and objects using 7 small shapes. And we do have a specific lesson with instructions around how to try and help young people see these new shapes. You can also play with coloring and dimension, etc. And then just to share with you, these are some examples of art projects students can do with tangrams. So you see all of this, if I'm looking at it accurately, are done with construction paper and can be, just very, very pretty. This is also a way to show it if you decided, for instance, that China was one of the countries that you wanted to explore, then this would be a great way to highlight that. Oops, click too fast. Um, Next, it will also within lesson 3, there are instructions on how to play Mancala, which is one of the oldest board games in the world. Historians believe that it actually originated in Egypt before 1400 BCE, and variations of the game are played by people of all ages in nearly every African country, in some Asian countries, and other countries around the world. And in some cultures, Mancala is an important part of daily life. And in some African cultures, learning to play Mancala is a ceremonial rite of passage. The word Mancala is an Arabic word that means to transfer. And the object of the game is to transfer playing pieces or stones from one bin to another. And there's another iteration, another way of thinking about this game would be it's not, is it backgammon? Am I thinking about the right iteration of it? No.
I'm not sure.
Does anyone on the call know if backgammon, if this kind of reminds me of backgammon, where you have, the two sides of the board. Yeah, backgammon is similar. Yeah. So that would be, and I'm not sure where backgammon is, so that's your homework to figure out where backgammon comes from. And Chinese checkers is similar as well. Thank you. So, and then a really great adaptation of this, you can see you may not be able to see very, very clearly, but this is actually an egg carton. So with just some, paint, some markers, maybe some glitter, really great, easy adaptation of this game and teaching it to younger people. And then finally, just to sum up this section, uh, these lessons, variations on hopscotch from Indonesia and China, games with marbles with their origins in Turkey and Cyprus and Indonesia. You can include any other games that the children play around the world, such as board games and card games, but this really is an opportunity to explore more fully where did the game come from? What is its origin? To what great culture or civilization could we give some thanks for the play that we engaged in? So here's another question. In the question box, if you could talk a little bit about what skills do you think are taught by puzzle games like Tangrams, and what skills are taught by board games like Mancala? What do you think? What are some of the skills that young people can learn as a result? So spatial awareness for puzzle games, math and geometry, patience, strategy, memory, how to keep things in order, critical thinking, problem solving, sharing, taking turns, counting, problem solving, counting strategies, visual processing, absolutely. That's great. Thank you so much. And then to follow up on that, do you use games to teach important skills and concepts to your students? Are there games that you use? We used to have one back before fire was invented when I was in elementary school. We used to have Cuisinart blocks, and they were all dimensional. So you might have one, and then you would have 10 little ones that would add up to that. So you were almost learning the basics of fractions in preschool.
That's why you're so smart today, Mark.
Yeah, that's why. Okay, so a couple of people are saying that they use card games to teach math facts, and they're cards that some people use at home in addition to at school. Card game, right? Card games to teach math, word problems, math fact bingo, chess for strategy, integrating math language into physical education classes. Set so teaches pattern and color recognition and differences. Thank you. So great. So there are all of these great ways that games are being used. Slides and ladders for math. So lesson 3 really just concludes, and as you all are saying, actually, many games are meant to teach and reinforce particular skills or concepts like counting and addition and geometry, strategy, critical thinking, hand-eye coordination, spatial perception. Um, have the students consider what skills or concepts are taught by the different games that they're learning, like really give them an opportunity to talk about what are they learning from playing the game. And this also may lead to the creation of games. Um, if you're planning on doing an actual Olympics, you might actually find yourself or find students wanting to create games. And this at least gives you a sense, a background of what you want the elements to include. So in the question box, what is your favorite form of exercise and what mental benefits do you get from this form of exercise? Okay, a couple of people like to dance, walking, Pilates, bike riding. Lots of dancers on the on the webinar today. I think it's HIIT, stress release. I'm not sure what that is.
I believe is that the high intensity workouts. I don't know what the other INTs stand for.
Yes, indeed, Liz, you are correct. It is a high intensity workout, and I didn't even know the acronym, so you're better off than I am. Uh, Downhill skiing, walking gives you time to see your neighbors, get your dog outside, talk to your daughter. That's excellent. I'm not answering this question, and I don't want to be judged because I'm not answering it, but I do like to walk. I'm finding that more and more, particularly as the weather is breaking here in New York. I like walking around. These are some examples you can see in lesson 4, where students are introduced to the idea of their heart rate and visualization exercises, sharing with them forms of exercise of yoga and capoeira, and there is you provide some information around the practice of yoga. And I think what's interesting is that even as I said, we have 4 program areas that we work in within workplaces, and when we're advising corporate companies around creating quiet rooms, sometimes there is a misunderstanding or not enough factual knowledge about the fact that yoga is not just a form of exercise, but it's actually a form of deep meditation um, and prayer and focus. And actually, the physical movements of yoga are meant to um, further develop focus, not just, it's almost kind of like the experience on the body in some forms of yoga is a byproduct of the focus and the concentration that you're engaging in from a cultural or spiritual perspective. Thank you. Yes, I am a couch surfer, very much so, going back to the last slide. Um, but yoga actually spread from Hindu yogis to many other people as both religious and spiritual practice. So there is this bigger experience or bigger learning opportunity than just kind of like walking by the yoga studio and assuming that everybody understands the same thing about that. Um, in yoga, prana is the word for energy, and asanas are postures that are intended to create energy in the body. So in lesson 4, there are some uh, instructions for leading students through the sun salutation pose. Um, just really just meant to introduce them to this idea of the connection between mind and body. And what we're sharing with you, the yoga poses from this lesson were taken from Yoga for Busy People, which is also a great source of information. We're going to share that link to this book with you. Liz is putting that in right now. And also, Capoeira is a Brazilian form of martial arts that was created by African slaves in South America around about the 16th century. And with the 2016 Olympic Games being held in Rio de Janeiro, this is the perfect time to learn about capoeira. The curriculum provides instructions on performing six basic capoeira moves, and you really want to communicate with students like the history around capoeira so that you don't have a bunch of children trying to karate chop one another, but that they're actually practicing the moves rather than battling one another. So I just think that it's important to put that in. So some discussion questions that you can conclude the lesson with are incorporated here. What was your favorite yoga pose? What was your favorite capoeira move? How does your body feel after doing capoeira? What are some of the similarities between yoga and capoeira? And then what are some of the differences? Because we're big on managing the balance of, yes, there are similarities, but let's also respect the differences that we have. So as our time is coming to a close, let me just share with you some takeaways that are basic ideas around webinar 3 and unit 3 of the curriculum, that it really can be fun to learn about nutrition and exercise through a multicultural lens, really looking into the histories and the ways in which a lot of the things that are just kind of common practice are how they came into our lives and our understanding. Even though different people have different food requirements, we can all enjoy a meal together. It just takes a little bit of work. and people play games around the world to exercise their minds and their bodies and to benefit themselves. But it's really important for us to share the culture about and the learning about games and exercise so that we can learn to enjoy one another a little bit more. Um, if you have questions, please feel free to start typing them in with the few minutes that we have left. And let me just also share that our next webinar is going to be on April the 14th, learning about being an athlete. And then in May, we'll have our last two webinars. And then also in terms of more information, not just about World Olympics, but our other curricula, you can find us at tannenbaum.org. If you have direct questions about either our work, our curriculum, or trainings that we do, you can send an email to education@tannenbaum.org. And we are also on Facebook at Tannenbaum Center and on Twitter, and I believe it's at Tannenbaum Center is our Twitter handle. So please feel free to be in touch with us. So we have a question about when the curriculum will be sent. We will be sending them out over the next 2 weeks, and so you should have them within the next 2 weeks, depending on how far you are from New York City. Oh, also one other thing that I wanted to mention is that there will be a certificate of attendance is one of the handouts that you have, but you can also download the handouts, but there will also be a SurveyMonkey evaluation of the session, and we really do encourage you to take a minute and fill that out. Those answers really are helpful and useful to us because providing that information to our funders and others allows us to make these webinars free of charge. So if you could do that. And we're also asking for information about if you're intending to do a World Olympics program of some kind. We'd really like to know about that. Um, you will be getting an email with the link to this webinar, and I'll speak with Kim when she's back in the office about including a link to the webinar series. I think, Liz, are you sending that already? What are you doing?
I sent the link to the SurveyMonkey, and I'm also going to send you our Twitter and Facebook information.
Okay, great. And then I think before we close out, can we find the page that we can direct people? Oh, actually, I can do it. I don't know if I can.
I sent out the page to everyone for where they can find the recorded
Webinars.
previous two webinars.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. You should expect the book within the next 2 to 3 weeks. If you were one of the early registrants, and I am pretty sure that we've reduced the price of the actual curriculum during this webinar series for those who may have registered late. So you can go to our website and under the store or under resources, you should be able to find your way to the store and you can order additional copies if you like. Yes, so we can include the links that were a part of this webinar series when we send out the email. I see that someone is working on their tablet and they don't have access to the links. So we'll include the links in the email that we send out, letting you know when the recording is available. Okay, we have another minute if anybody has any additional questions. Okay, well, I think that this would be a good time for us to complete the session. I want to thank all of you for your responses, for your participation. Thank you for being so gracious with us trying to figure out how to actually operate the system. So thank you so much. I also want to send a big shout out to Kim Kaiserman, who is the program associate in the education program, who's at home sick with the flu. Thank you, Kim, for all of the work you did to get us ready to deliver this session. And we send you good healing wishes, and we'll see you in the office next week, hopefully. And thank you all for joining us. Have a great day.